Hello. Well, this is the essay we're going to edit together. You will notice that there are certain marks on the text. This has to do with the fact that there are certain surface structural mistakes which are important, and we need to remove them as soon as possible. Okay, did not never have, obviously, a double negative, so never had any positive result. Sorry, never had. We heard in the news, we realize, past and present. We should be consistent. Besides, we're talking about what we hear now, so it's definitely a present tense that we need. When we talk about the movies, The Hunger Games and My Name is Ken, these two are titles of movies, so the movies are very well identified. If we're going to say something about them in an adjectival clause, it should be a non-defining relative clause, and so we need a comma. Violent is an adjective, so no S there. In order to become a more peaceful and civilized society, this is a typical misplaced modifier or dangling modifier. Actually, when we have an non-finite clause without a clear subject, it is ambiguous or not expressed. I mean, who is to become societies? And definitely not, violence and discrimination, which are the subjects of the main sentence. So, in order to quickly fix this, we need to improve the sentence by including a subject for the verb to become. And so we could simply say, in order for any given society to be constructed or built as peaceful and civilized, there's no need here. We're not making a comparison. The comparison is incomplete. More than what? More than which? So to be constructed as peaceful and civilized, comma, violence and discrimination need to be eradicated. Okay, we need to capitalize Jews. For example, must be followed by a comma. In the movie The Hunger Games, again, this is an introductory phrase, so we need a comma. It is the government that encourages and organizes, because if we were talking about the government, a whole bunch of people who, right, this would be plural. And besides, we have a sort of fronting structure here with for emphasis, so it is the government that encourages. Institutional discrimination. This is not necessarily wrong, but I would improve it saying something like institutionalized discrimination. That emphasizes the fact that it has been made it has been legitimized by the institution. This example illustrates that when society resorts to violence, comma, to separate the subordinate from the main clause, there's no possibility. Possibility is followed by a construction with of. So if we have a verb, it should be in the ing form. So of having, and this having could be omitted. In order to achieve peaceful society, once again, comma before the main clause, violence must be eliminated. Besides eradicating violence in society, again, a classical dangling modifier where the subject for eradicating is not expressed here. Remember that for participial clauses like this, you've got to make sure that the subject of eradicating and the subject of the verb in the main clause must be the same. So clearly, discrimination is not the subject of eradicating here. So we could fix this sentence in many different ways, but one quick way would be, besides eradicating violence in society, we also need to eliminate discrimination. Alright? There are better ways of expressing this idea. In the final fully edited version you will find another alternative, but this is just to quickly fix the syntax. Violent and hate crime, to eliminate, discrimination. Violent and hate crimes. This is sort of a lack of parallelism here, since violent is an adjective, hate is a noun, even though it's used as an adjective here. So why not simply say violent hate crimes? And that solves the inconsistency. Again, My Name is Can is the title of the movie, so anything we say about it will be in a non-defining relative clause preceded by a comma. Look at this. Is killed, they thought, is also, he wanted. So clearly an inconsistent use of tense is constantly shifting from moving back and forth between present and past. So keep to one. The present is killed by his peers just because he is thought to be a Muslim. He's also discriminated because of, well, he suffers. By the way, here we're beginning a new sentence, so we should write a period instead. When he wants, when he wants to talk to the president, perhaps it's better to use a capital here, he is or he gets stopped by the police is one of the nouns that requires the use of the definite article. And then we say, well, obviously we need to say these two cases, right? Because it's plural. I strongly agree with the idea that to become better citizens, comma, separating subordinate clause from the main clause, we must not discriminate against each other. Not only the movies, but also the history of humankind proves, because when we use not only but also, the agreement is with the second element. The history of humankind is singular, so we need to use the verb proves. The agreement is with the second element. So any benefit for our society. Okay, we have now removed the most obvious surface mistakes in syntax and construction. Let's take a look now at the other marks that have been made in this sort of baby blue. These marks have to do with lexical choices. What's wrong with this part of the sentence, which later on ended up in World War II? Well, actually there's a simplification in the expression. It's not like the extermination of Jews led to the World War II. World War II was an extremely complex historical event that had multiple causes. Besides, ended up in is a very informal way of putting it. So I would change this and say something like, referring to the extermination of the Jews, I would say something like an atrocious policy directly connected with other historical events which sparked off World War II. We have fixed the sentence and we have used more content-specific lexes. Okay, well, this mark actually should have been in yellow. The others is a structural thing. We're talking about others in general, so we don't really need to use the article to control others. Going back to lexical choices, we have this expression to get rid of them, which again is perhaps too informal for an essay. Besides, well, I didn't quite mark it as a structural thing, but now I notice that there's a problem of lack of parallelism too, because you say to get rid of them and for the entertainment. So why not keep to a single structure, not only to oppress the lower classes, but also to entertain the upper class. All right. Okay. Now we move on to consider to oppress, not only to oppress. I'm just checking that I haven't made other mistakes. All right. What about the words peaceful, eliminated, violence, discrimination? why do you think I have marked them, highlighted them as problematic lexical choices? Not because they're wrong, but because they're repeated. The student has said more than 3 times. Has used these words more than 3 times. So when you're writing the first draft, perhaps these are the words that come to your mind. But when you're editing and polishing your draft, you should work perhaps with a thesaurus online or with another type of dictionary of synonyms and conduct lexical searches. For example, I want to replace eradicate, and I don't know how to. I type in the word eradicate, and a whole bunch of words will drop down, and here they are: wipe out, destroy, get rid, abolish, etc. Now, don't get the, working with a thesaurus can be rather tricky, because you might be misled into thinking that any one of these words will replace the word that you're looking for, and that it will make sense in the new context. That is not always the case. So once you start working with a thesaurus and you choose a word, for example, I have chosen uproot, you should do some more dictionary work on this word to make sure that the combination that you're looking for is the right one. For example, a quick way of doing this, or making sure that you're making a correct choice, is to type in the combination in a quick Google search, where you will have a lot of results here showing you that the combination is possible. And you have lots of articles, books even, where this combination is featured, which is a confirmation that you have chosen an appropriate collocation, right? Okay, I don't have time within the scope of this video to consider every lexical search, but in the final fully edited version, you will see how some words that are repeated have been replaced. Another word I object to is the word wrong here. Perhaps an unfair stereotype is a much more acceptable collocate. And finally, I just thought that the word laws is a bit too general here, strengthening existing laws. Well, which laws? Anti-discrimination laws, and you could add an anti-violence programs, right, to tackle these problems to prevent future genocides. Here we go then. We have removed the most important structural and lexical mistakes, which is why we're removing these marks. And in the next video, I'm going to be approaching this essay from another perspective, from the point of view of organization, the quality of the evidence, and the generic conventions suitable for or applicable to opinion essays. Thank you very much. Don't forget to watch the next video.